What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm back again, and I'm giving you guys the week's wrap. Now, what is the week's wrap? Of course, it is a week's summary of all the big wrestling news from this past week. So this week, we had some huge plans that are coming for SummerSlam. We got some big news regarding some wrestlers throughout all the companies throughout this past week. And also, Mr. Triple H was a little sassy on the media call for TakeOver in your house this past week. And I'm going to dive into that and also give you guys a nice little speedy recap of AEW Dynamite this past week. So without further ado, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling, and let's hop into it. So for starters, let's hop into this little media call from this past week. So every single takeover that WWE has, they end up giving a media call hosted by Triple H where he answers a bunch of questions from all the wrestling news outlets. We're not a part of that. We don't do that stuff yet because we still got jobs. But we had numerous other people show up like PW Insider, Dave Meltzer, Brian Alvarez. I think Cultaholic was also there too. So they asked themselves a bunch of questions for Triple H, and Triple H answers. Well, typically these goes very peaceful for Triple H, but he had a little sass this time, boy. The conversation came up of NXT call-ups to the main roster and, of course, how they end up getting utilized. And, of course, how storylines progress throughout the time of people who are NXT and how some people get used and how some people don't get used. Well, in a nutshell, how he described it was when high prospects come from the NFL transferring from college, not all first-round draft picks pan out the way that they're supposed to. And he pretty much nailed it on the head there and also said, if you guys, instead of diving into the storylines and going into them as deep as you do, how about you watch them as they progress? And if you like it, then watch it. And if you don't like it, then don't watch it. And that was how he addressed that one. Well, another question came up, and it was regards of Mickie James and her huge announcements on NWA this past week regarding the all-females pay-per-view that's coming up in August. Well, he had something to say about that too. He said pretty much, of course, as she had an open invite for all the best wrestlers, all the best female wrestlers in the world, he flat out said this. In his opinion, WWE has all of the best females in the world. Well, someone didn't take this very, very considerably. And this was Miss Thunder Rosa of NWA and AEW, where she flat out said, I don't think the best women in the nation, nor the best women in the globe are all in one company. Which I firmly agree, Miss Thunder Rosa. This came from her Twitter account in response. And well, he also dived into the all-females pay-per-view idea for NWA and said, hey, WWE has no intentions of doing an all-females pay-per-view at this time, anytime soon, as, of course, equality is across the boards, because if we did an all-male pay-per-view, there would be some controversy. I can understand both sides, but Triple H, boy, more power to you, bro. I'm glad you dived into this and no one else. Because, it's time to play the game, I guess. So from there, on to the big news about SummerSlam. And of course, we got some heavily speculated things and some heavily rumored things that are not yet all confirmed because, of course, we're only in June. And SummerSlam is in August. So I'm going to just dive into some of these rumors. And of course, I'll give you guys what Dave Meltzer has said this past week on an update to them. Now, of course, SummerSlam's coming up in August, and of course, they're planning on having a big spectacle. They actually plan on making SummerSlam this year's WrestleMania because, of course, this year's WrestleMania was just a welcome back of all the fans, but we haven't seen fans in arenas ever since. So we actually plan on getting a full-blown thing for SummerSlam. WWE is actually using all the resources they can to pull off SummerSlam. And, of course, this should be headlined, and this has been heavily rumored and heavily speculated that this will be headlined by Roman Reigns versus John Cena for the Universal Championship. Another rumored match will be Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar for WWE Championship. Now, these both are heavily rumored, and Dave Meltzer actually dove into one of these matches, and it will be Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Now, of course, what he said is that Brock Lesnar is currently not scheduled to be a part of SummerSlam. He actually is not scheduled to be partaking in anything in WWE anytime soon, as it looks like the time schedule will be probably sometime late this fall or sometime in the wintertime when Brock Lesnar makes his return. So we have no idea on the update on the rest of the matches on the match card, but it looks like they're going all out. And as of course, the rumored host will be Miss Cardi B. So I don't know how this is going to pan out, but there's only one way to find out. Now, this past week, we got some unfortunate news about an NXT star, Miss Shotzi Blackheart. She has come down with an injury, as this was confirmed on her Twitter account. Now, she was not specific on what happened or when it occurred, but that is why she's been off TV, and that has been the reason mainly why Ember Moon has been working solo these past few weeks, is because her tag team partner and long best friend, Miss Shotzi Blackheart, is dealing with an injury. So, of course, I asked and offer her a speedy recovery. From one injured wrestler to another, Mr. Leo Rush, he suffered a separated AC joint, and of course he used this time to set back from wrestling and of course meditate and really reevaluate how he feels about the wrestling world and how he feels about his personal life. And with that, he has taken up and he has retired from pro wrestling. He has decided that he wants to just focus on being a dad and focus on the foundation of his family, which there's nothing wrong with that, of course. But he let everyone know that once he's all healed up, he has some contractual obligations with New Japan Wrestling, where he's going to finish up some things there. But after that, he will be calling it even Steven. And of course, nothing's wrong with this decision from Leo Rush. I'm super happy with all the work that he's put in, and he's been able to make some great memories in the pro wrestling world. So, of course, I respect the decision, and thank you, Mr. Leo Rush. Now, of course, since we talking about a bunch of Twitter confirmations, let's go ahead and hop in some more. AOP, the Authors of Pain, no one heard about them in a long time. They got released last year, part of those batch releasings from WWE after WrestleMania. Well, apparently, we have heard that numerous companies and organizations have reached out to the Authors of Pain to hopefully get them on the show. Well, what they have heard was they had left pro wrestling and they had went back to regular jobs. And then other sources, once this news came out, has said that they had just simply retired from pro wrestling. Well, this past week, we got a response from Mr. Akam, where it sees a picture of Paul Ellering, Akam, and Razor, where all three of them got their middle fingers up. And they say, we ain't done yet. So hopefully we see the return of the Authors of Pain really, really soon. And hopefully with Paul Ellering. So from one hopeful debut to one for-a-fact debut. And it is the re-debut of Miss Eva Marie. Now, of course, it was confirmed on Monday Night Raw that Eva will be making her long-awaited re-debut to the pro wrestling business in WWE. And rumors have been coming out that she's not going to be coming back alone. She's actually going to have some muscle with her. And it has been rumored to either be from NXT, Miss Mercedes Martinez, or from NXT UK, Miss Piper Niven. Now, both of these fit the description super well to be the muscle of Eva Marie. And honestly, whoever it is will be a huge addition to the women's division and a huge way to help Miss Eva Marie in her position as she re-debuts. So whoever it is, I can't wait to see, and we'll be finding this out real soon, as Monday Night Raw is tomorrow night. This episode of AEW saw a lot of progression and a lot of storylines. We saw Christian Cage beat Angelico, but of course, HFO ends up getting the last laugh as Matt Hardy and, of course, the Hybrid 2 end up beating down Christian Cage, all up until Mr. Jungle Boy Jack Perry was able to get in there for the aid. Then, of course, later on, we see Jungle Boy and, of course, Mr. Kenny Omega's feud start to brew up as we see these two go face-to-face ahead of their title match that's coming up on Saturday Night Dynamite on June the 25th. We actually see these two start to scrap a little bit, and as Jungle Boy was looking to get the advantage, we saw, of course, the Young Bucks come out in the aid of Kenny Omega. But speaking of the Young Bucks, we actually see them lose in their match against Penta, Mr. Pac, and of course Eddie Kingston as they finally got their comeuppance on the Elite, where we actually see even Kazarian comes in later on for the aid as the Good Brothers thought they could poke their nose into this business. Then we actually see later on that we get a confirmation that next week Cody Rhodes will be teaming up with Arn Anderson's son, Brock Anderson, making his AEW Dynamite debut against QT Marshall and Mr. Anthony Ogogo. And then it has been confirmed that July 7th on their nice AEW Dynamite special, I forgot what it was called, that's why I said that, it will be QT Marshall versus Cody Rhodes in a strap match. And this will be taking place in Miami, Florida, baby. And then, of course, later on, we end up seeing that Sting ends up in with Darby Allin in a promo where Darby Allin actually came to the conclusion that he's not replacing Sting. He's actually going to be going into this match with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page alone, telling Sting that he needs to stay home and he wants to go into this match by himself. So next week, it will be a handicap match. Darby Allin versus Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky. Then we find out later on in the show where we end up seeing the brewing of Britt Baker and Nyla Rose's, both of their feuds going across, as of course Britt Baker says to Nyla Rose in an interview backstage with Tony Schiavone. I'm sorry, she won't face to face, but this is what happened. Britt Baker said, of course Nyla wants the championship because the belt made Nyla Rose. While in my case, I make the belt. And she's taking the jab, but is it a reach? Is it? And later on, we see the TNT Championship get defended as Miro took on Evil Uno. And this was a dominant display by Mr. Miro, even with Evil Uno getting in some nice offense, even getting the motivation of the Dark Order. He still lost to Mr. Miro. Then the main event sees Team Taz, Mr. Powerhouse Hobbs, and Brian Cage versus Hangman Page and number 10 of the Dark Order. And of course, the Dark Order got their win back, as of course, Hangman Page and number 10 end up getting the victory with a nice little ripcord. I want to say it was a ripcord spine buster, or it was something really nice, into the buckshot lariat, where it was a pinfall victory for Hangman and number 10. But this is not until after the dissension, it looks like, of Team Taz, where Ricky Starks slapped Brian Cage in the face for declining the help of Starks and Hook. And this ends up getting, of course, Cage worked up and chasing Starks to the back. But that's everything that happened on AEW, as it looks to be some crazy things going on in Team Taz. I'm super glad that Jungle Boy is looking to be the centerpiece of a lot of things. But the Elite, They up to something, and hopefully we get a band of guys from this AEW roster that just don't want to take it up no more. And it looks like we're getting that a little bit, but that was AEW Recap in about 4 minutes. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, a lot happened with, of course, the wrestling news this past week, and a lot happened with AEW, but I will be back with you guys next Sunday, giving you guys the week's wrap again and another 4-minute AEW recap. But until next time, I'm Kevin Jones, the Disciples of Wrestling, and that was wrestling.